The tribunal chamber stretched into shadows, its crystalline walls catching the light of 3 dying stars. Captain Marcus Reyes stood in chains that hummed with magnetic restraint, his dress uniform torn at the shoulder where they'd ripped away his rank insignia. 5 years of exile hadn't broken him, but standing here, watching the Hegemony Council deliberate his fate. This might. The human returns to us in disgrace, Ambassador Cathari's voice rippled through the chamber like breaking glass. The Zalathi diplomat's 4 arms moved in patterns of contempt, each gesture a calculated insult. 5 years ago, you defied the coalition. You chose emotion over protocol. You saved enemies when you should have let them burn. Marcus lifted his head. The scar across his jaw, a parting gift from his court-martial, caught the starlight. I saved children, Ambassador. 47 Threnody younglings who had nothing to do with their parents' war crimes. Children who grew to become resistance fighters. The Vorthak representative, Commander Gel, leaned forward. His exoskeleton clicked with each movement, a sound like loading weapons. Your mercy cost us 3 battlecruisers. 800 coalition lives. The weight of those numbers pressed against Marcus's chest. He'd memorized every name, every face. But he'd also memorized the sound of Threnody children singing in their refugee camps, alive because one human captain had refused a genocide order. Yet you summon me here, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his bound hands. After 5 years of exile on a dead moon, watching supply ships pass overhead like ghosts, you bring me back. Why? The council chamber fell silent. Even the atmospheric processors seemed to hold their breath. Ambassador Cathari's chromatophores shifted, purple to amber, the color of reluctant necessity. Because the galaxy burns, Captain Reyes, and you are the only being both sides might trust. The holographic display erupted to life above them, star systems in flames, dreadnoughts torn in half, cities reduced to glass. The hegemony and the sovereign collective had been dancing around war for decades. Now they were locked in a death spiral that would consume every habitable world in the outer reach. 14 billion dead in 6 months. Commander Zell's voice dropped to something almost like grief. Both sides have deployed singularity weapons. The collective's berserker fleets hunt our colonies. Our retaliation swarms strip their worlds bare. At this rate, there will be nothing left to rule. Marcus studied the devastation. He'd seen war before, led fleets, commanded thousands. But this was extinction wearing the mask of victory. You need a peace broker, he said slowly. Someone both sides know can't be bought or threatened. We need someone who understands sacrifice, Cathari corrected. Someone who has already lost everything for their principles. Someone who... She paused, her 4 hands weaving uncertainty. Someone who thinks like a human. The words hung between them like an accusation and a prayer. Marcus almost laughed. 5 years ago, they'd stripped him of rank, ship, and honor for thinking like a human, for choosing compassion over protocol. Now they wanted that same flaw to save their civilization. The Summit of Chains begins in 72 hours, Commander Gel continued. Both faction leaders have agreed to meet on the neutral station at Meridian Point. You will guarantee their safety. You will broker terms. I will do nothing in chains, Marcus interrupted. The council exchanged glances, a symphony of alien expressions that all meant the same thing. Distrust wrestling with desperation. Finally, Ambassador Cathari touched a crystalline panel. The magnetic restraints dissolved, and Marcus felt the blood rush back to his wrists. 5 years of prison gravity had made him forget how freedom felt, like falling and flying at the same time. You will have a ship, she said. The Redemption's wake, it's fitting, we thought. A small crew. Volunteers only. Beings who believe in what you represent despite your history. My disgrace, you mean your humanity, Commander Zell corrected. And there was something in his tone that Marcus had never heard from a Vorthak before. Something that sounded almost like respect. We've tried logic. We've tried strength. We've tried fear. Perhaps it's time we tried whatever it is that makes your species choose death over dishonor. Marcus rubbed his wrists, feeling the weight of possibility and doom in equal measure. Outside the chamber's towering viewports, the 3 dying stars painted everything in shades of ending. But somewhere out there, beyond the light of dying things, 14 billion souls waited for someone to stop the killing. I'll need my own terms, Marcus said. Name them. First, full pardons for any crew who join me. Some will be criminals, exiles, the disgraced, the kind of people who understand redemption. He paused, meeting each council member's gaze. Second, and if I die trying this, my name gets cleared. Full military honors. My family stops paying for my choices. And third, Kithari asked, though her chromatophore suggested she already knew. When this is over, whether I succeed or fail, you let me disappear. Really disappear. No tracking, no surveillance, no one more mission. I save your galaxy, and you let me find my own peace. The council didn't deliberate. They'd already decided before bringing him here. Marcus could see it in the way they held themselves. Like beings who'd already bet everything on a losing hand. Agreed, they said in unison. Marcus turned toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. At the doorway he paused, not looking back. 5 years ago, you called me a disgrace for saving children. Today, you're asking me to save civilizations. He let the silence stretch, tasting the irony. Maybe disgrace is just another word for doing what's right when everyone else has forgotten how. The door sealed behind him with a whisper of recycled air. In 72 hours, he would stand between two armies bent on mutual annihilation. He would broker peace between species who'd forgotten they were anything more than enemies. But first, he had to remember how to be the man he was before they broke him. The captain who chose compassion over protocol. The human who believed that honor meant more than survival. The corridor stretched ahead, lit by the glow of dying stars. Somewhere at its end waited a ship called Redemption's Wake. Marcus Reyes began to walk. Not as the disgraced officer he'd been, or the broker they needed him to become, but as something simpler and more dangerous. A human with nothing left to lose. And everything left to prove. The Redemption's Wake hung in space like a prayer made of steel and stubborn hope. Marcus stood on the bridge, watching his crew prepare for what might be the galaxy's last diplomatic mission. They were 12 souls, each one broken in their own way, each one here because they had nowhere else to be. Jump coordinates locked for Meridian Point, announced Yuki Chen, his navigation officer. She'd lost her commission for refusing to bomb a hospital ship. Her hands moved across the controls with the precision of someone who'd learned that small choices could save worlds. Weapons systems. Well, they exist, growled Thurk, the Kandoran weapons specialist. Half his face bore plasma burns from a battle he'd fought on the wrong side of. Though if we need them, we're already dead. Marcus nodded. The Wake wasn't built for fighting. She was a courier vessel, refitted with just enough firepower to make pirates think twice. Against either faction's dreadnoughts, they might as well throw stones at stars. Captain, his communications officer, a Threnody named Syl, turned from her station. Her voice harmonized with itself, a trait of her species that made every word sound like a song of warning. Encrypted message coming through. Priority 1, Coalition Intelligence. Marcus felt his shoulders tighten. Priority 1 meant someone very powerful was very worried. The hologram materialized, not Ambassador Kithari, but someone Marcus had hoped never to see again. Admiral Victoria Cross, Earth Defense Command, the woman who'd signed his court-martial papers with a hand that never trembled. Marcus, she began, and already he could hear it. The tone that meant the mission had changed before it began. We need to talk about Meridian Point, Admiral. I thought Earth was staying neutral in this conflict. We were, until our deep space monitors picked up something unusual. Her jaw tightened. Both factions aren't just coming to negotiate. They're bringing something else. Something that shouldn't exist. The bridge fell silent. Even the ship's atmospheric systems seemed to pause. 17 hours ago, Admiral Cross continued, we detected quantum signatures consistent with architect technology. Both the hegemony and the collective have excavated something from the dead worlds. They're bringing architect weapons to your peace summit. Syl's harmonics shifted to a minor key, the Threnody equivalent of a gasp. The architects had been gone for 10,000 years, leaving behind only ruins and warnings. Their technology was forbidden by every treaty, every law, every sane species in the galaxy. They're planning to use the summit as cover, Marcus said, the pieces falling together in his mind like shrapnel finding flesh. Meet under the banner of peace while they position doomsday weapons. Or worse, Admiral Cross leaned forward. Our xenopsychology teams think they might both be planning the same betrayal. Eliminate the other side's leadership and activate the architect tech to ensure total victory. Thurk growled something in Kandoran that didn't need translation. Why tell me this? Marcus asked. Earth gains nothing from warning me. For the first time in 5 years, Admiral Cross's expression softened. Because despite everything, Marcus, you were right. About the Threnody children. About choosing compassion over protocol. We've been monitoring those refugees you saved. They've become doctors, artists, peacekeepers. One of them just invented a cure for Helian plague. She paused. You saved children, and they grew up to save worlds. Maybe that's what human thinking really means. Seeing the future in every choice we make. The weight of the revelation pressed against the bridge like a physical force. Marcus turned to his crew, these broken, discarded souls who'd answered his call. We're walking into a trap where both sides are the hunters, he said simply. Anyone who wants to leave, now's the time. No one moved. Yuki spoke first. Captain, with respect, we're all here because we've already faced impossible choices. At least this time we faced them together. Marcus felt something crack in his chest, the ice that 5 years of exile had built around his heart. Then we adapt the mission, he said, his voice gaining strength. We don't just broker peace, we prevent a genocide. Thurk, can you rig our sensors to detect architect energy signatures? The Kandoran's scarred face split into what his species considered a grin. Give me 6 hours and enough stim coffee. I can make these sensors detect a ghost's heartbeat. Sil, I need you to hack into both factions' communication networks. Quietly. We need to know exactly what they're planning. The encryption will be nearly impossible to... She paused, her harmonics shifting to something like determination. I'll find a way. Yuki, plot multiple escape routes from Meridian Point. When this goes wrong, and it will, we need to be gone before anyone knows what happened. His navigator's fingers were already dancing across her console. On it, Captain. Marcus turned back to Admiral Cross's hologram. How long before Earth intervenes? We won't. We can't. The political situation is too fragile. She straightened her uniform. But Marcus, if you can expose what they're planning, broadcast it to every world, every ship, every living soul in both factions. Maybe their own people will stop them. Turn their weapons into witnesses, Marcus murmured. Very human of you, Admiral. I learned from the best. The ghost of a smile crossed her face. Even if I had to court-martial him for it. The connection ended, leaving the bridge in the blue-green glow of hyperspace prep. Marcus walked to the central command chair, the one he'd thought he'd never sit in again. The leather was worn, patched in places where previous captains had gripped too hard during desperate moments. He settled into it, feeling the weight of command return like an old lover's embrace. New mission parameters, he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the small bridge. We're not just going to stop a war. We're going to expose the lies that started it. Both factions think they can use architect technology to win, but that tech destroyed its own creators. It doesn't choose sides, it just consumes. Through the viewport, the stars began to elongate as Yuki prepared for the jump. In less than 40 hours, they would arrive at Meridian Point, a neutral station that was about to become the stage for either peace or annihilation. Captain? Sil's harmonics carried a note of worry. What if both sides refuse to listen? What if they're so committed to using the architect weapons that nothing we say matters? Marcus stood, moving to the viewport. The twisted light of hyperspace reflected in his eyes, beautiful and terrible, like hope itself. Then we do what humans do best, he said quietly. We put ourselves between the weapon and the innocent. We make the cost of their choice so personal, so immediate, that they have to see what they're about to become. You're talking about martyrdom, Thurk observed. No! Marcus turned to face his crew. I'm talking about the oath every soldier takes, regardless of species. To protect those who cannot protect themselves. To stand when standing is impossible. To be the line that must not be crossed. He looked at each of them. Yuki with her steady hands, Thurk with his scarred defiance, Sil with her harmonious determination. They weren't the crew the galaxy would have chosen for this mission. They were exiles, disgraced, the forgotten, but perhaps that's exactly what the moment required. The hegemony and the collective have forgotten that oath, Marcus continued. They've forgotten that victory without honor is just another form of defeat. So we're going to remind them. We're going to stand in that summit, between their weapons and their targets, and we're going to make them remember what it means to choose mercy over power. The jump alarm echoed through the ship. Reality bent, twisted, and reformed as the Redemption's wake punched through the fabric of space itself. In the swirling chaos of hyperspace, Marcus allowed himself one moment of absolute truth. He was probably going to die at Meridian Point. They all were. But if their deaths could prevent the deployment of architect technology, if they could save even one world from that ancient hunger, then maybe disgrace was just another word for heroism that arrived too early. The ship plunged deeper into the twisted light, carrying 12 broken souls toward a moment that would define whether mercy or madness ruled the stars. Somewhere ahead, Meridian Point waited, a neutral station about to host the most dangerous game of trust ever played. And Captain Marcus Reyes, the disgraced human who'd chosen children over protocol, would be the dealer. Meridian Point materialized from hyperspace like a promise of neutral ground, 3 spinning rings around a central sphere designed by a dozen species to represent unity. But Marcus could see the truth in the tactical displays. 2 fleets faced each other across the station's gravitational shadow, weapons powered down but targeting solutions already calculated. "Captain," Thurk's voice carried controlled alarm. "I'm reading massive energy signatures in both flagships. The architect tech. It's not just weapons. It's something bigger." Marcus studied the readings. The energy patterns were wrong, not destructive but transformative. Like reality itself was being rewritten at the quantum level. "Sil, any luck with their communications?" The Thernotes' harmonics rang with triumph and horror in equal measure. "I've broken through, Captain, but—" "You need to hear this." The bridge speakers came alive with intercepted transmissions. First, the hegemony flagship. Consciousness transfer at 80%. Once we activate the architect interface, every collective mind will be forcibly integrated into our neural network. They'll become us. The war ends because the enemy ceases to exist. Then the collective. The conversion matrix is stable. When triggered, it will rewrite hegemony DNA at the molecular level. They'll become part of our biological collective. Perfect unity through perfect transformation. The bridge fell silent. Both sides had found the same solution in different forms, not to defeat the enemy but to erase them entirely. To make them disappear into forced unity. "My God," Yuki whispered. "They're not planning to kill each other. They're planning something worse." Marcus felt the weight of understanding crush against his chest. This wasn't war anymore. It was the elimination of diversity itself. The forced convergence of all thought, all life, into a single pattern. "How long until the summit begins?" he asked. 20 minutes, Captain. Both leaders are already aboard the station." Marcus stood, his decision crystallizing like ice in vacuum. "Thurk, can you rig our reactor to overload? Something we can trigger remotely?" The Kandoran's eyes widened. "Captain, that would answer the question." "Yes, but the explosion would take out half the station. Not if we position the ship correctly. Not if we use it as a shield." Marcus turned to his crew. "This is no longer a diplomatic mission. This is a hostage situation where the hostage takers don't know they're hostages themselves." He moved to the communication console. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Override everything. Channel open, Captain." Marcus took a breath that felt like his last. "This is Captain Marcus Reyes of the Redemption's wake. I am broadcasting to every ship, every station, every living soul in both fleets. What I'm about to show you will determine whether we have a future worth living." He nodded to Sil, who began transmitting the intercepted communications. Across both fleets, crews listened in growing horror as their leaders' true intentions were revealed. The forced conversion. The erasure of identity. The end of what made each species unique. On the tactical display, Marcus could see the chaos beginning. Ships breaking formation. Urgent communications between vessels. The careful order of both fleets dissolving into confusion. "Captain," Yuki pointed to the screen. "Both flagships are powering weapons. They're targeting us. And the station," Marcus observed. "They'd rather destroy the evidence than let their people know the truth." Through the viewport, Meridian Point's lights flickered. The summit had begun, but now it was a gathering of leaders whose own fleets were questioning them. Marcus opened a direct channel to the summit chamber. The holographic display showed both faction leaders, Supreme Chancellor Varthok of the Hegemony, a being of living crystal whose thoughts moved at light speed, an overmind Shay of the collective, whose thousand eyes saw probability itself. Leaders of the hegemony and collective, Marcus began, his voice carrying the weight of every impossible choice he'd ever made. I stand before you as a human, a species you've both dismissed as too young, too emotional, too unpredictable to matter. But today, that emotion has a message for you. He gestured to Thurk, who brought the reactor readings on screen. My ship's core is primed to detonate. If either of you activates your architect technology, I will destroy this station and everyone on it, including myself and my crew. You're bluffing. Chancellor Varthok's crystalline form pulsed with indignation. Humans fear death. We fear it, Marcus agreed. But we fear something else more. We fear a universe where diversity dies, where choice becomes illusion, where the beauty of difference is erased for the comfort of conformity. Overmind Shay's thousand eyes focused on him like the weight of probability itself. You would die for strangers? For species that exiled you? That called you disgrace? 5 years ago, I saved 47 Threnody children. Your people called it weakness, but those children grew up to become healers, artists, inventors. They became proof that mercy creates futures that violence can never imagine. Marcus walked closer to the screen, letting them see the scar across his jaw, the wear of exile in his eyes. You want to know what makes humans special? We choose to love what we cannot understand. We choose to protect what offers us no benefit. We choose to believe that tomorrow can be better than today, even when today is trying to kill us. On the tactical display, something extraordinary was happening. Ships from both fleets were moving, not into attack formation, but between the flagships and the station. Creating shields with their own vessels, Captain. Sill's harmonics rang with amazement. I'm receiving hundreds of transmissions. Ships from both sides. They're refusing orders. They're protecting us. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Because they remember what you've forgotten, Chancellor. What you've forgotten, Overmind. They remember that we're meant to grow together, not consume each other. Through the viewport, he could see it. Vessels from both fleets intermixing, creating a protective shell around Meridian Point. Hegemony cruisers beside collective bioships. Enemies becoming shields for peace. Your own people have chosen, Marcus said quietly. Not your vision of forced unity, but actual unity. The kind built on choice, on respect for difference, on the radical idea that we're stronger for our diversity, not weaker. Chancellor Varthok's crystalline form flickered, processing thousands of scenarios in seconds. Overmind, Shay's eyes closed and opened in waves, seeing probability collapse into a single truth. The architect technology, the Overmind spoke slowly, was their final trap, wasn't it? Not weapons of war, but tools of convergence. They destroyed themselves by becoming one thing, one thought, one purpose. And you nearly followed them, Marcus said. But you can choose differently. You can choose to remain beautifully, chaotically, wonderfully separate. Different notes in the same symphony. The silence stretched across light years. Then, on the tactical display, both flagships began powering down their architect devices. The energy signatures faded like dying stars, taking with them the threat of forced unity. Chancellor Varthok spoke first. Captain Reyes, you held our entire civilizations hostage with nothing but a failing reactor and the truth. The most human thing I could imagine, Marcus replied. For the first time in recorded history, a hegemony chancellor laughed. It sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Then perhaps we have much to learn from humanity's madness. The next hours blurred together. Treaties were signed, not for victory, but for coexistence. The architect technology was jettisoned into the nearest star, where it burned like the funeral pyre of a bad idea. Both fleets mingled, sharing stories, sharing drinks, sharing the exhausted relief of civilizations that had stepped back from the edge. Marcus stood on the observation deck of Meridian Point, watching the mixed fleets prepare to depart. Yuki stood beside him, along with Thurk and Sill. So what now, Captain? Yuki asked. The galaxy knows your name again. The disgrace is gone. You could have any command you want. Marcus touched the scar on his jaw, that old reminder of choices that had cost everything. The council promised me I could disappear, find my own peace, and will you? Sill's harmonics carried curiosity and something else, hope. Marcus turned to his crew, these broken souls who'd helped save the galaxy. I was thinking, there are a lot of colonies out there. Forgotten places where different species try to live together but don't know how. They could use a ship, a crew. People who understand that peace isn't about being the same, it's about choosing to be different together. Thurk's scarred face split into a grin. The Redemption's Wake running humanitarian missions to the Edge Worlds? Why not? Marcus smiled, the first real smile in 5 years. We're already disgraceful outcasts who saved the galaxy. Might as well make a habit of impossible things. Through the viewport, the two fleets began their journey home, not as victors or vanquished, but as civilizations that had remembered what they were fighting for. And at the center of it all, one small ship with a crew of 12 had reminded them that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their stubborn, beautiful, impossible insistence that everyone deserved a chance at redemption, even themselves. The stars stretched infinite before them, full of worlds that needed help, species that needed hope, and futures that needed someone foolish enough to believe in them. Marcus Reyes, no longer disgraced, no longer exiled, finally understood what it meant to be human. It meant choosing love over logic, mercy over victory, and hope over certainty. It meant being willing to stand between the weapon and the innocent, even when you were both, especially then. Set course for the outer settlements, he ordered, settling into his captain's chair. There's a colony dispute on Kepler 442b, something about water rights and ancient burial grounds. Sounds impossible, Yuki said, already plotting the course. Perfect, Marcus replied. We specialize in impossible. The Redemption's Wake turned toward the distant stars, carrying its crew of broken heroes toward their next impossible choice. Behind them, two civilizations began the harder work of peace. And somewhere in the void, the ghost of humanity's reputation grew a little brighter, not as conquerors or engineers, but as the species that chose compassion when the galaxy forgot its name. They were humans. They were special not because they were stronger or smarter, but because they believed everyone else could be special too. And sometimes, in a universe full of reasons to despair, that belief was enough to change everything.